Hey guys, Cam315 back at it with another video for you guys, and I am back with another One Piece anime episode review for you guys. As it's, let's just say, just for background information, it's good to be back home. Obviously, I went on a vacation. I went to go to San Diego, and basically chilled there for the weekend, this past weekend with my buddy. If you guys have checked out any of my other videos, the Red Wolf, we went out to San Diego for basically a weekend vacation trip and everything. Fun time, enjoyed it. We went to the Padres game. Surprisingly saw some old co-workers of mine in the area there as well. So yeah, but anyways, man, it's back to the work. One, I gotta get back. I gotta go back to work. Luckily, I have an off day on Monday. Thank God, have an off day on Monday, and then at the same time, what's his face? Um, Obviously back to recording videos. I got a bunch of videos from this weekend slate that I got to record, and stuff like that. So look forward to that. But sorry for that quick channel update in terms of something like that. But anyways, One Piece. We are continuing the backstory to the Kuma stuff, and in this episode, you get some happy, nice, go lucky moments. You know, you typically get in your backstory for One Piece, and then that's when typically you start to get to the bad shit, and the bad part of it happens relatively the end. Now, apparently, I'm guessing in the community of the One Piece anime community, people are complaining about this episode. Now listen, it's late. I don't want to like scream at the top of my lungs, and plus I don't want to wake anybody up. I'm in my household. But I don't know why people are throwing a hissy fit over the episode. If you want to put in the comment section why people are upset about this episode. And the thing that I'm seeing on social media is the fact that they're clipping the part when it was revealed that Ginny got captured and got taken away and abducted. And they just had that whole thing where it's like, oh, Ginny smiling, and then it's like a twirly loop-de-loop thing, which is like was only like a 3-4 second clip anyways. I'm guessing people were upset about that. Um, I don't know why people were upset about it. Like, what is there to be upset about it? I didn't see anything taken out of it where I'm like, oh, yeah, that's something where people can be upset about. No, I didn't see anything for anybody to be upset about anything in regards to, obviously, that scene or the episode. Look, if you don't see any of my other videos where I typically in my reviews before I start the review I rant about shit. Again, like I don't know why you people set yourself up so high with these expectations like something's gonna be fucking great, and when it's nothing what you would think it is, well, you get extremely disappointed. Lower your expectations. Go in these episodes not knowing like your socks are gonna be blown off. But again, the same people that are probably complaining about how they handled this episode, they're more than likely the same people that get up in arms and celebrate. And these are the same exact people who push this agenda like One Piece anime is goated and it's greater than any fucking anime because the fucking animation is all this and that. You know, I really don't really care. Like to me, okay, you know, it just symbolizes like, oh, somebody that Kuma cared about, somebody that Kuma loved, got taken away, and it's kind of like this spiral that he's going back in again, where somebody he loves is being taken away from him, and there was nothing he could do to stop it, right? So I don't know why people are throwing up in arms and hissy fits. I think more than likely the reason why people are throwing up in arms about this, it's coming from the people who read the manga, and they must be complaining, they must be upset at the fact like they didn't show how Ginny ended up being captured. I'm thinking people were thinking, oh, we're gonna go more in depth to see how Ginny got captured and how she got taken away and stuff like that. In reality, no, it's the exact same thing how they did in the manga, which That's what the anime is adapting. I don't know what else y'all gotta say, but personally, if you ask me, I think it's just people complaining just to complain because it makes absolutely no damn sense. And when is it, when regards to something anime related about the anime community, somebody's not freaking crying or throwing hissy fits that get other people to jump on the bandwagon and rip something that they don't like? That's just anime for you. I personally don't like to engage in that stuff. The anime that I watch, I typically enjoy the content I get. If I don't enjoy it, then I don't either watch or I don't talk about it. I know more than likely I don't even freaking blow about it. I just go on about my merry day and I just say, okay, I didn't like how they handled it there. It is what it is. I'm not somebody that gets up in arms and rants and puts these clickbait videos talking about how shitty they handled it and stuff like that. But whatever, let's get into the episode. You guys are here for the review, not to hear my thoughts about people online ranting about a One Piece episode, right? So, anyways, where we last left off, obviously we had the Kuma stuff with the God Valley incident stuff, and essentially, they managed to escape the God Valley incident. We don't know how they got off the island because, you know, we're keeping that a secret about what the hell truly happened on the God Valley incident. So maybe when the God Valley incident, you know, flashback happens and we get it in its entirety, we'll see how Kuma, Eva, or Ivankov, and Ginny, they all escaped the island and all the other shit that came across it. But essentially, after that, obviously we know that Ivankov, he went his own way. We know that he ended up joining the Revolutionary Army, which we see in this episode he does. And Kuma and Ginny ended up living together in the Sorbet Kingdom. So yes, now you cut back 30 years ago, which is 8 years after the incident of the God Valley. The episode, I believe, lists Kuma as age 17, Ginny is age 21, and basically you have it to where, again, Ginny and Kuma, they've been living in the church that Kuma's parents were living in and taking care of him in. And you have it to where these old people are in this church, and basically they're just happy that Kuma's back. They're like, man, I'm just happy that you're back, Kuma. You know, it was a damn shame that you got taken away, you and your family got taken away, but, you know, I'm glad that you're back and you're A-okay, right? You know, and I hope your family, your parents are okay too. Obviously, Kuma knows, like, yeah, my mom and my dad are dead. But, you know, he's living life. And thing is, we have it to where, you know, these old people, they come in, they're talking about how, man, I have this ache in this back and this aches and these pains. Do you think can relieve them? And, you know, we see Kuma using his paw fruit, because if you remember, he can actually extract the pain from, obviously, people, right? So he was doing that. He was extracting the pain from these old people to make them feel better. And he does this, you know, every Sunday in the church, right? Now, Ginny walks in and she's like, you old people need to go back at home and you need to go back to your homes and live there and leave, you know, Kuma alone. He doesn't need to be bothered with this. Now, Kuma's like, okay, Ginny, it's okay. It's all right. You know, these people are nice. I've known these people since I was a child, right? And Ginny's kind of not having it. And it's funny because the other, some older men are just like, oh man, look, it's Ginny and everything. They're like, man, she's the talk of the town. Everybody's hitting on her. And obviously, Ginny has that typical One Piece girl design where they're basically got that typical body type where they got big ass, big boobs. They look hot as shit. You probably want to, you know, yada, yada, yada. And I guess it makes sense. You know, Ginny has gotten more attractive since her younger days. And, makes sense why there are probably some guys out there that probably are simping for her and damn near asking her out every chance they get. But it's clear, we know that Ginny is truly in love with Kuma. And it's clear that we know that Kuma is in love with Ginny, right? So that's the thing. But, you know, she wants them to be like, look, you guys need to go home and everything. Now, the old people basically bring up the fact about in the city area of the Sorbet Kingdom, the ruler, the king, he's basically asking for obviously these heavenly tributes because, he's getting that from these celestial dragons, and the dude is basically a celestial dragon supporter. So he's basically just like, well, you guys got to pay these fees and everything, and if you don't pay these fees, well, then we'll lock you up. And that's what the old people are saying, like, that's the thing. It seems like Kuma's charging these people free of charge. He's just doing this out of the kindness of his heart. Ginny kind of is like, look, if you're gonna come here, the least you could do is pay. And obviously the old people are like, well, we barely have any money to even do this. Like, we use it to just make sure we're not getting arrested when we miss our payment, right? And Kuma also tells Jenny, like, look, it's okay. I'm just doing this out the kindness of my heart. So, yeah, but eventually the thing is, they end up going home and they end up leaving and everything. So, yeah. But again, you can see that they're living clearly in a corrupt kingdom, and everything. And it's definitely, not good at all, right? It's definitely not good because clearly, you got this freaking dictator like king who's trying to impress the celestial dragons in terms of doing all this celestial, this freaking heavenly tribute that they got to pay and stuff like that. Crazy, right? Crazy. Now, Ginny waits outside the church and she starts to cry and get very emotional. And that's because, if you remember, the thing about Kuma's devil fruit is he can extract the pain of people. But the thing is, it leaves this gigantic pain bubble, right? And if you remember from back from the Thriller Bark arc, when Zoro basically told Kuma, like, hey man, if you let us go free, I'll take all their pain and suffering, my crew's pain and suffering that they all suffered, I'll take it and I'll handle it, right? And you saw that moment where, you had the nothing happened moment, right? The same thing happened here. Kuma can't, obviously Kuma's gonna have to release that and everything. And the only way to release it is he intakes the pain that he suffered from the old people's aches and pains. And you just get this crazy scene where he just dives in and he takes this pain and he's bleeding profusely and everything. It's painful, right? And we actually see, like, because we saw like a glimpse of it, what happened with Zoro, like, but you see here, like, the damage actually can do when you fully take on, other people's pain and everything, right? And this man was bleeding profusely and everything, right? And you can tell Ginny is very emotional and she starts to cry because she hears the screams that Kuma is. So you got to factor in, this dude's doing this every Sunday, right? Every single Sunday, he's releasing the pain of these old people. I'm guessing he did this for these 8 years past the God Valley incident stuff and everything, right? And he continues to take this pain. And it makes sense why Jenny's telling these old people, like, hey, you got to either pay up or you got to go back home, because she cares about Kuma and she does not want to see him get hurt and take all this pain and punishment. And we even find out in the conversation later, like, between Kuma and Ginny, like, the old people don't even know, like, he takes their pain, he takes their pain away, but he takes it on and it's hurting him. Because I bet you if they told the old people, like, hey, we're more than welcome to take your pain away, but just letting you know, like, Kuma's got to take this pain for you, and he actually gets hurt pretty badly, right, because of it. So, Ginny obviously, wants him to kind of stop doing that, and why she's saying the old people, like, you either got to pay or you got to go home and, deal with the pain you got, is because she clearly cares about Kuma and she does not want to see him hurt, to the point she's always nursing him every Sunday on the bed, back to health, and everything, right? So that's the thing, right? So you have that adorable, moment and everything. So, it again, it shows that they truly do care about each other. And it's like, okay, she can't stand it, right? Also, we do find out the old people did give them some food and everything. They eat this food and everything, and then, Jenny just kind of, again, they're just again enjoying life and everything. So yeah. Now a few years pass. Again, I think, hold on, I'm pulling it up. 25 years ago, when Kuma's 22, Ginny's a few years older. They're basically one, they look at the newspaper and seeing about the Revolutionary Army stuff, and Kuma's very, happy about that because he's like, well, they're doing great things, and you can tell like he knows like because he's been a person of who's been abused and enslaved by people, and he respects what Dragon and the Revolutionary Army is doing because they're creating people and giving people freedom that they may have not once had. Now in the meantime of this conversation, Ginny is thinking and she's like, hey Kumachi. He's like, hey, she's like, look, let's just get married. Let's get married, Kumachi. And Kuma's like, what? And he starts getting all flustered and everything, right? And he starts to think, and he thinks back about his childhood, and he thinks about his father, him, and then his mom, and how they all got taken away, and they got taken away to Marijua because the fact that he had Buccaneer blood in his veins and everything. And even though his father said, listen, I will sacrifice my life, just leave my wife and leave my son alone, they have nothing to do with this, they're just civilians, take me if you want me. But obviously we knew the world government didn't listen. And Kuma is just thinking of this, and he tells Ginny, no, I don't want to get married, I'm fine being the way we are right now. Now, ultimately, I do think the man would love to be get married with Ginny, and it makes the most sense. Like, dog, you've known this girl, you've lived with this girl this in your entire, basically, a good chunk of your remaining life that you have up until this point, after the tragic shit you had to deal with, before you guys met. I would think like yes, he would want to get married, but because the fears that he had from his past, he's afraid that, well, if we get married, maybe we have a family, the same thing's gonna happen. World government's just gonna come in randomly as we're just living our life in peace, nothing to do, right? And then guess what? You know, we all get taken away, and maybe we're back to being enslaved because I have Buccaneer blood in me. You're gonna get involved because of it because you're married with me, and then if we have a kid, well, our kid's gonna have Buccaneer blood in them, and it's gonna be terrible. And I think it's more of the fact that he's afraid that he doesn't want the things taken away from him. Now, ultimately, you can kind of say like, I mean, even by the end of the episode, maybe he didn't take everything for granted, and he should have always been by Ginny's side, no matter what. Especially the fact that, and we're being real, it's never confirmed the moment once they get to the Revolutionary Army that they ended up getting married. More than likely, I think it's clear, and more than everything, that it's clear that the Revolutionary Army members clearly knew, like, oh no, they definitely like each other a lot. They're more than likely a couple, and it's kind of like that thing where it's like, well, they're not married, but they are married, right? But again, it makes sense for Kuma to probably turn down Ginny's offer to get married. Ginny doesn't really care, and we know that Ginny does not care about who he is and everything. She loves him, and I now I do kind of wish, even in when I was reading the manga, like I do kind of wish. Now we do see the fact that Ginny is disappointed when Kuma does turn her down. She is a little kind of like ticked off and kind of just upset and sad of like, why do you not want to marry me? Is there something that I'm not, wrong? Now, personally, I wish like Oda and the manga, or Oda just had the moment where Kuma says like, look, I would love to marry you, but I'm afraid of the fact that if I marry you, you're gonna get accused of being something with, traitor with me because I have this very ancient bloodline that the world government clearly hates and flowing through me. And if you're married to me, they're gonna treat you as my accomplice. And just say if we have a kid, right? They're gonna take my kid away, and it's everything, that we've worked to build up since we got captured and we escaped God Valley. It's gonna go get taken away again, and I don't want you to be taken away from me, nor if we were to have a kid, to be taken away from me. And I think that's just his PTSD kicking in. And sometimes, even as you get older, you know, that PTSD kicks in. Now remember, he is 22. You know, he's still very young, right? He's not age 25 or anything, right? When his brain fully is developed. He's 22. So that trauma from his childhood, from being a slave, slaving around in Marijua and then the God Valley stuff, right? Clearly that gets him to the point like, yeah, no, I'm not in a rush to get married, nor do I want to get married because I don't want to lose somebody I care about again. So, yeah, but some time ends up passing by again, and you have it to where in the Sorbet Kingdom, the royal guard is arresting and taking the people away. And we find out this was a decree from the king of the Sorbet Kingdom of saying, like, all the people from this side, all these old people from this side of the country who clearly can't pay, right? They're going to be my slaves. Now, Kuma shows up and he's like, why are you doing this? Why these people have nothing to do right here? And the other royal guards are like, who the hell is this? And like, oh, it's that freaking priest or whatever, that pastor, in the South, right? And the royal guards are like, look, we ain't trying to cause no problems. You go back and you go back to your church and you continue being a pastor. You don't need to worry about what's going on here. Now, Kuma clearly is getting pissed, and you can clearly tell like he wants to do something about this because he knows what it's like to be a slave, and he does not like seeing the people that he's known for his life, become slaves, and he knows what it's like to be locked up in chains. So Kuma just straight up attacks and goes crazy, and he starts attacking the royal guard members, right? Again, it's fucked up that from the king's perspective, like, oh yeah, they can't pay and they're old. Yeah, we'll make them do slave and they'll do slave labor until they freaking die out, right? Who cares about them, right? Which is, it's all effed up, right? You should be taking care of your elderly people, right? But no, it goes to show you that the Sorbet King is just as corrupt as any other corrupt, like, evil king we see in one of these countries throughout the story of One Piece. As long as it doesn't benefit them, or as long as it benefits them, they won't give a damn about stepping over people's toes and everything. So, yeah, but because of this, Kuma ends up getting locked up. He's been put in prison, and then we see the three boys that threw rocks at him, in the last episode, and then Ginny is there, and he's like, "Wait, what are you guys doing here?" And they're like, "Yeah, we heard what you did, so we decided to take on the Royal Guard, and they arrested us too, right?" And then all of a sudden, a raid happens, and the raid that happens is coming from the Revolutionary Army. The Revolutionary Army goes to the Sorbet Kingdom, and we see it to where Dragon and Ivankov show up. They basically take down the kingdom right then and there and uproot it and take down the Sorbet Kingdom king. And they basically break Kuma and Ginny out of the prison, and they're like, well, 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 it's great to see you both again. Ginny and obviously Kuma are happy to see Ivankov, and this is when Kuma meets Dragon for the first time, and he's just in awe. He's like, "Oh my gosh, you're freaking Dragon, right?" So that's the thing. Now they do have a closed meeting talking about what the heck why the revolutionaries do what they do, and we do find out some interesting stuff about Dragon. So Dragon does reveal that he used to actually be in the Navy. He used to be a Marine officer, right? It makes sense because Garp is his father, and more than likely Garp enlisted him to be in the Marines. Now Dragon basically said like, yeah, I tried for a few like weeks/months and I just wasn't vibing with it. The type of justice that they were seeking, it wasn't the type of justice that I thought, that I think is actually true justice, which makes sense. We know the Navy, is just as corrupt as the government. Now, some of the Navy members, they're actually good-spirited dudes. They actually know, like, no, this is not right. There's something going on here. Like, we know Kobe, Smoker, Tashigi. We know a few people that are like, huh? What are you talking about? I didn't, like, for example, the Smoker shit with the Alabasta stuff. They made Smoker take, like, say, like, oh, he's the one that took down Crocodile and his evil schemes, right? But Smoker, we know, he knows, he's like, no, I did not do that shit. It was the Straw-Hat Pirates that did that shit. They managed to save the Alabasta Kingdom. But because the world government doesn't want to put in the papers, hey, Straw-Hat Pirates save the Alabasta Kingdom, save one of these royal kingdoms from the original, countries, right? One of our original countries. They didn't want to put that in the headlines and say like, oh yeah, hey, actually, there are pirates out there that do good things. Maybe pirates are actually okay, you know? They don't want to get that out there. They want the propaganda to say like, no, pirates are bad. Now, yes, we know there's bad pirates out there, but we know there's pirates in the One Piece world that, look, they're just there to hang out, have a good time, have a sense of freedom, not do anything unless provoked, right? Um, and we know, for Dragon, unlike guys like Smoker and everything, um, he kind of does what Aokiji kind of did, with the exception of not joining a pirate crew, right? He basically left and did his own thing. He's like, nah, fuck this. Like, they spew like they're doing the right thing and they live by this justice code, but I know deep down, like, they ain't doing this shit. It's just not. What they claim is justice, it's not. And that's why Dragon's like, no, what I'm doing, I feel like this is true justice, and that's giving people the right to do what they want to do and live the way they want to live. And nobody should be telling somebody how they can. Now, I think Dragon believes like, look, yeah, there got to be laws in place and everything, but if you're going to go extreme and above that to the point you're enslaving people and punishing people for no damn reason, like, and you're not holding them to a type of justice, like, no, they deserve to be punished for what deserve to be punished, that's kind of thing. Now, they don't specify when Dragon left the Navy. Dragon just said like, look, I just worked there and then I left, after I didn't like working there. So yeah, but Ivankov is like, hey, Ginny, Kuma, don't you want to come work in the Revolutionary Army? And obviously Kuma and Ginny, they both decide to say yeah, because obviously they're working alongside Ivankov. And plus, Kuma wanted to do it, and Ginny is like, yeah, sure, I'll go wherever Kumachi's going. So you just get kind of a, cut over to see like, what was going on and everything, and how they basically, saved all these kingdoms and everything and promoted things. Kuma was one of the revolutionary army's captains and everything. And then this is when you get left off in the sad, tragic cliffhanger where they get a call in, and we find out that Ginny and her group has been captured. After, I guess, liberating one of these islands, Ginny and the crew were just like just talking and everything. Kuma does go back to the island from time to time to make sure everybody's okay on the Sorbet Kingdom, but Ginny was on another island at the time, doing Revolutionary Army stuff, and they were talking about like, they were talking about Kuma and how like, it's gonna be great to see Kuma again and stuff like that, and Ginny's like, yeah, but we don't see who, but out of the blue, somebody comes in, takes them out. It's sounded out to Dragon saying like, hey, Ginny's been abducted, she's been captured, these people came up and attacked us and we didn't see it coming, and everything. So you can only suggest it was more than likely the world government / maybe the Navy that attacked them and everything. So yeah, and then it's basically revealed like she got abducted and she got taken. Kuma hears of this and he is just heartbroken. He's just like, what? And obviously you get that scene in the episode where everybody's growing up, but clearly everything that Kuma feared was going to happened, and basically what we see in the next episode preview, he's gone damn near a manhunt to try to find Ginny, and everything. And let's just say it's next week's episode gonna be fucking emotional. So yeah, but anyways, if you guys like the video, leave a like, put in the comment section your thoughts, hit that subscribe button if you want to get more One Piece content or any other anime content I upload to the channel. Until then, guys, stay safe out there and have a great rest of your day or your night or whenever you watch this video. Until then, guys, peace.